Hi everyone, the topic that I would like to discuss with you today is about the apologies made by St. John Paul II in behalf of the church's mistakes. So, as an introduction, Pope John Paul II made many apologies, asking for forgiveness. During his long reign as a pope, he apologized to the Jews, to women, to people convicted by the Inquisition, and even our Muslim brothers killed by the Crusaders, in the Middle Age, and almost everyone who had suffered at the hands of the Catholic Church over the years. So here we are talking of in behalf of the Church, the Pope asked for forgiveness. So we will not talk here of his own personal expressions of forgiveness for those who have committed mistakes on himself, but what what the church has done in the past, the mistakes that the church has done in the past. Indeed, Pope John Paul II is often described as a true believer of forgiveness and compassion. Forgiveness and compassion is a gospel value, and he continued to be an example of these values in his gestures of asking forgiveness for the wrong done by the church. No, he did not only preach about forgiveness, but he lived a life of forgiveness until his death. No? So at this point, let us talk about the idea of forgiveness. When we talk of forgiveness, a common error in talking about forgiveness is the challenge to forgive and forget. To forgive is to give up any desire for recrimination or revenge. No? It is possible to do that, but what is not possible is to let go of the memory of hurt, being hurt by others, by those persons responsible. Jesus never commanded us to do what is impossible, and but what he wants us to do is to control the memory, so that it will not control us. No? Another common error is to portray forgiveness as an easy task. Consider Jesus' dying words of forgiveness aimed at his executioners during his passion, death, and resurrection. No? He said, "Forgive the Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing." So those words are left out of many of the oldest manuscripts, but biblical scholars are rather certain that Jesus actually said the words, no? And they wonder if perhaps the copyist left the words without because probably they were having trouble themselves forgiving the people responsible for the death of Jesus, no? But the truth is that real forgiveness is hard, no? It requires lots of help from God. Now, the church is actually preparing for the third millennium, and in the Roman Catholic tradition, this milestones or this millennium of a closing of another new millennium, no? An opening of a new millennium. So it is called a jubilee or a holy year, no? And it is a year of forgiveness of sins and also the punishment due to sin, no? So it is a year of reconciliation between adversaries of conversion and receiving the sacrament of reconciliation, and hopefully consequently there will be solidarity, hope, justice, commitment that will prevail, no? And a commitment to serve God with joy and in peace with our brothers and sisters, no? A jubilee, it can be ordinary if it falls after the set of period of years, no? So there was this practice in the Roman Catholic Church every 333 years, no? Or 33 years, or every 550 years, no? So but in the new millennium, this year is, they call it jubilee year, no? So it is called the great jubilee year of 2000, no? Included a day of prayer for forgiveness of sins of the church, no? And it was the event was really in particular in March 12, 2000, no? It is one particular rich ceremony of the Jubilee, dubbed as the Day of Forgiveness, or March 12, 2000. It was the first Sunday of Lent, and there Pope John Paul II begged forgiveness from God for the sins committed by the members of the church, and particularly sins committed in the name of the church. In this event, there are seven senior cura officials called the cardinals. They read special prayers asking for forgiveness in specific areas. So the first cardinal, Cardinal Bernardin Gantin, he was the dean of the College of Cardinals, made a general confession of Christians' sins in the course of history. Next is Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger. He was a cardinal prefect of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, called for confession of faults for the use of non-evangelical methods in the service of faith, as for example in the Inquisition. And then Cardinal Roger Echegaray, president of the Central Committee for the Jubilee, exhorted the confession of sins that caused divisions among Christians. And Cardinal Edward Edris Cassidy, president of the Pontifical Council for Promoting Christian Unity, acknowledged the faults committed against the people of the covenant, the Jews. In this event also, they particularly mentioned the Jews for because of the Holocaust that they have experienced. And then next is the Japanese Archbishop Stephen Fumio Humao, president of the Pontifical Council for the Pastoral Care of Migrants and Itinerant People, mentioned sins committed against love, peace, and the rights of people's respect of cultures and religions. And then the Nigerian Cardinal Francis Arinze, president of the Pontifical Council for Interreligious Dialogue, requested confession of sins that have wounded the dignity of woman and the unity of mankind. And finally, a Vietnamese Archbishop Francois Xavier Nguyen Van Tuan, president of the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace, encouraged confession of sins in the area of fundamental rights of the human person, particularly the abuses against children, marginalization of the poor, suppression of the unborn in the material womb, or their use for experimentation. So these senior cardinals asking for forgiveness, read these special prayers, and particularly on those mentioned. So this mea culpa, or the admission of the church, it's my fault. When say mea culpa, it's my fault. This was widely uploaded, but some members of the Catholic Church felt that it had gone too far and have damaged the doctrine that the church is holy. So, for his part, on the part of Saint John Paul II, at the prayer of the Angelus later on that day, Pope John Paul II indicated that such a ceremony was necessary. The Holy Year is a time of purification, since the church is holy because Christ is her head, and spouse. The Spirit is her vivifying soul, and the Blessed Virgin Mary and the saints are her most authentic expression. But however, the children of the church know the reality of sin, whose shadows are reflected in her, darkening her beauty. Because of this, the church does not cease to implore God's forgiveness for the sins of her members. So these are the one of the Catholic Church admission of one's fault as an example of admitting, mea culpa, because in 1633 it was the Inquisition of the Roman Catholic Church against Galileo Galilei, one of the founders of modern science. So they asked Leo Galileo to recant his theory that the Earth moves around the sun, because Galilei concluded that it was the sun is at the center of the universe, and this was not accepted by the Catholic Church. No? So Pope John Paul II requested to reopen the case of Galileo Galilei around 359 years later. No? The church finally agreed, no, at a ceremony in Rome before the Pontifical Academy of Sciences. Pope John Paul II officially declared that Galileo Galilei was right. So the formal rehabilitation was based on the findings of a committee of the Academy the Pope set up in 1979, soon after taking office. No? And the committee decided that the Inquisition had acted in good faith, but it was wrong. So that's why Pope John Paul II really wanted to reopen the case. No? Of course, for two reasons. No? Number one is that insufficient attention that had been paid to the whole case. No? And then the second reason is that the satisfaction with ambiguity contained in the Second Vatican Council church document entitled Gaudium et Spes. No? So, as far as I know, there are certain theologians who have, in that time, no, far remote from our time today, no, because today we accept also, no, all of us, no, when we were in elementary, all of us agree that the sun is the center of the solar system and the earth revolves around the sun. So that's already what they accepted, no, and also the church accepted. Okay, so here are the list of apologies made by Saint John Paul II. Although this is not really the whole thing, but these are most important apologies made by Saint John Paul II. No, so even before he became Pope, he was already a prominent editor and supporter of initiatives like the Letter of Reconciliation of the Polish Bishops of uh, the German bishops from 1965. No? Now, when he became Pope, he officially made public apologies for over 100 of these wrongdoings. No? To the, as I have mentioned, to the women, to other churches, to the Jews, to the Muslims, to the Christian of other denominations, no, and even to Galileo Galilei that I have already mentioned earlier, no, the legal process of on the Italian scientist and philosopher Galileo Galilei, no, because he is also a devout Catholic, no, he even received his educations in the with that from the church, no, and also the Christians involved in the African slave. He was Pope John Paul II asking for forgiveness. And this was happened. This apology happened on August 14, 1985. No, and then next is the church role in burning at the stake. No, and the religious wars. No, wars that happened during followed after the Protestant reformations. No, in May 1995 in the Czech Republic. No, he asked for forgiveness. No, to those religious leaders in the mainland Protestantism. No? The inactivity and silence of many Catholics during Holocaust. No? It was the killing of millions of Jewish people, and the church was silent about this. So Pope John Paul II do not really blame the those people responsible. Uh, Probably the Pope, who was at that time also silent, but he was really completely asking for forgiveness for religious reconciliations, no, to be just have to give time to really heal, no, all the wounds, no. And in his December 18, 1999 speech in Prague, no, Pope John Paul II expressed deep sorrow for Hull's death, no, and praised his moral courage, no. And then the next is the Crusaders' sack of Constantinople in the Middle Age, no. It was around 1204, no. And then next is uh, the abuses inside the church, no, the Catholic sex abuses, no, the church stolen generations of Aboriginal children in Australia, also onto China for the behavior of Catholic missionaries in colonial times, no. This was sent via email, no, this apologies made because of. And then in 1999, uh, Cardinal Joseph Cardinal Ratzinger, the prefect of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, would later become Pope Benedict XVI. He also presented a study on the topic memory and reconciliation, and this is the purpose of this document, is to examine, not to examine particular historical, but rather to clarify the presuppositions that ground repentance for past faults, no. So it examines repentance for past faults in the context of sociology, ecclesiology, and theology. Now, the mea culpa, let's talk about the mea culpa of Pope John Paul II, no? Its impact. No? So Pope John Paul II's long-awaited and unprecedented apology for the sins of Christians through the ages was echoed by local churches in the United States and elsewhere, and generally welcomed by non-Catholics around the world. No? So his example was followed by many of the bishops all over the world, to also ask for forgiveness, no, to admit that there are also mistakes or wrongdoings that the church committed. Indeed, the March 12 event, as I have previously discussed, was the culmination of the church examination of conscience for the Great Jubilee year. No? So the Pope's own initiative, the idea of a Day of Atonement, met some resistance even inside the Vatican, but it was designed to acknowledge shortcomings in the church's past in order to give Catholics a sense of reconciliation and make future evangelization more credible. No? According to Pope John Paul II, we forgive and we ask for forgiveness. No? This was during his historic Lenten liturgy in St. Peter's Basilica. No? As I have mentioned earlier about the top Vatican officials, cardinals who pronounced a request for pardon for sins against Christian unity, the use of violence in serving the truth, hostility towards the Jews and the Muslims and other religions, and the marginalization of women, and even the abortions, the society's weakest members. No? So Pope John Paul II said that the church had many saints, but some of its members have shown disobedience to God, no, and inconsistencies with the faith in the past and even in the present. So, according to Pope John Paul II, for the part that each of us with his behavior has had in these evils that have disfigured the face of the church, we humbly ask for forgiveness. So that is really his uh, words of asking for forgiveness. No? So at the conclusion of that apology liturgy that we have mentioned, the Pope embraced and kissed the crucifix, and in his final blessing he declared that never again should such sins be committed in the church. No? And this event was heard and seen by thousands of people attended the service, no? Packing the basilica and watching on giant screen TV in out the square outside. No? So commentators inside and outside the church hailed the event as a historic step, and the Pope was described by one Italian newspaper as a voice in the wilderness for his willingness to publicly ask for forgiveness. And there are other religious leaders who are happy about this gesture of the Pope, no? Like the Jewish leaders who praised the Pope, but of course some said he should have been more specific about the Holocaust. No? In New York, the Anti-Defamation League of uh, the B'nai B'rith, no, said that in failing to specifically mention the Holocaust, the Pope had missed a historic opportunity to bring closure to Christian responsibility for sins against Jews. But in a statement, the German Evangelical Church said that the Pope offered words worthy of the greatest respect and gratitude. And the same thing also is affirmed by other Protestant leaders, church leaders. So the Vatican officials emphasized that the church apology was not a political but a religious address, first of all, to God. So the church mea culpa cannot be seen as a form of self-flagellation performed in public for the benefit of others, but uh, it is actually a part of that preparation for the reconciliations in preparation for the great Jubilee year. So for my reflection about this part of the Pope's gesture, uh, the the gestures made by Pope John Paul II in behalf of the Catholic Church reminded us the importance of the gospel value of forgiveness. No? To stay humble as shown by the Pope is still a great challenge in our time today. What we need to do is to have the courage to admit one's fault. It is important to remind ourselves that to err is human, to forgive is divine. So the first step in developing this value is awareness. No? It is because awareness is the beginning of change. No? Awareness. Okay? So that's all for my discussion about this topic. If you have questions or clarifications, don't hesitate to message me or you comment down below. And also, please like and subscribe. That's all.